Hey there, my name's Eli, and today I'm going to show you how a lot of players are making tons of money by crafting cluster jewels. Step 1, we want to figure out what builds we want to craft cluster jewels for. Typically, you're looking for top-end meta builds. In this example right here, we've got my Toxic Rain Pathfinder, and as you can see here, we're looking for broadside and tempered arrowheads on a large cluster jewel with 8 passives and 2 jewel sockets. In addition to that, this build uses ones like this, which is a medium, with Student of Decay and Wicked Pall, as well as Eternal Suffering and Wicked Pall. Figuring out which build is meta and the one that you want to craft for is kind of up to you, but what I want to show in this video in particular is Aura Stacker jewels. Aura Stackers, despite the 4 nerfs that Grinding Gear has given them, are still incredible, and these jewels are still highly in demand. So while we're going to focus on cluster jewels in this video, this methodology is going to work for any build that you decide to craft for. Now let's pretend for just a second that I am sort of new and I'm not sure what it is I'm looking for, but I know that aura stacking builds are really powerful. So what do I do to get a start on this methodology? I go to Google, I say aura stacking build PoE. The first one is a 3.13 update, that's the most recent. Great, looks good. So let's go down here, I find the path of building, and I load that up, and I see, wow, 44 million DPS. And I go to calcs and I see, wow, effective hit pool of insane numbers. Okay, this looks great. So let's go take a look at our cluster jewels. What do we have? All right, first among equals and replenishing presence. And we have this everywhere. Okay, so this build uses a lot of first among equals and replenishing presence. So this one has 4 of those jewels. And then, and this is a really important step, we go and check the cost of the base jewel as well as the cost of the fully completed jewel. Okay, so let's hop over to Craft of Exile and see what it's going to take to craft this. Let's go to cluster jewels, it's a medium, this is aura effect, and we want first among equals, and we want replenishing presence. And let's say we're going to chaos spam because that's what we're going to do. Wow, 300 tries. That's not great. However, here's the trick. Right now we're rolling for every single mod available, but as you can see, we only need level 50 item level in order to craft this. And we don't need anything above 68. So what we're going to do is we're going to item level up here. We're going to say this is a maximum of 67. So now we're looking at cluster jewels that are item level 50 to 67. This narrows down our search a little bit, but it also makes it so we only spend 84 Chaos Orbs on average to hit these 2 modifiers. Now imagine with me, if you will, it's somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks into a new league, and these base jewels, the item level 50 to 67, 5 or 6 passives with a jewel slot, are coming up for between 40 and 70 chaos. We managed to get one and we roll it, let's say we get a little bit lucky and it's 60 chaos. So we have spent a roughly about 130 chaos to roll this cluster jewel. When I was selling these jewels at this time frame in the league, they were selling anywhere from 2 exalts to 4 exalts. It depends really on what the secondary passive modifiers are. So if you got like chaos resistance, for example, or a particular attribute that people needed at the moment, then the price would increase. Now, those are just some theoretical numbers, but the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of these cluster jewels that are for really powerful builds sell for a lot more than it takes to actually roll them individually. And what you see on the screen behind me here is I went out and bought a cluster jewel for the purposes of this video and threw 1,000 Chaos Orbs into it to figure out just how many I could get while I was talking to you about this. Now, it's important to understand that of course you can go on losing streaks. There were plenty of times where I would throw 250 Chaos into a jewel and it wouldn't hit, but no more than 300 chaos, at least for me personally, would it take in order to get the replenishing presence and first among equals, which essentially more or less offsets the cost of the jewel itself. So even when you kind of fail pretty hard, you're breaking even, more or less. And while honestly, it's a bit of a shit show trying to get jewels like this because you have to have a live search, which I'll link in the video description below as an example. You have to fight against people that are price fixing and other people that know about this strategy in order to get that person's jewel. And of course, when someone lists a jewel and gets bombarded by 20 messages, then it gets a little tricky to get them to trade with you, right? They assume it must be worth much more. It's important for you as the buyer to understand that there will be more jewels that come on the market and that there is a price point at which it no longer makes sense to buy the base jewel. My personal strategy was to allow for people to buy jewels over the price at which it mathematically made sense to do so, which would increase the odds that should they fail in their roles, they get knocked out of the market completely, which means one less buyer for these jewels, which increases my odds to get more myself. Another downside to this is that you are sitting in your hideout and you're watching for a live tracker of the trade site to pop up with a new notification, and you're trying your best to trade with people. It's really a trading game, and unfortunately that is generally the most efficient way to make money in this game. Kinda sucks, but it is what it is. And of course, one of the pros about this particular strategy of crafting cluster jewels is that not a lot of people necessarily know how to do this, and the price differential between the base jewel and the fully crafted jewel is usually fairly significant, meaning there are a lot of markets because there are a lot of different builds that need powerful cluster jewels, and while not many of them are as good as these odds for the aura stackers, they're usually pretty decent. Throughout this past league, I started by crafting the Toxic Rain jewels that I showed earlier. The odds weren't as good as this one. I think the Tempered Arrowhead broadside was around 126 on average, and the Chaos jewels were a little bit higher, I believe in the 150 to 160 Chaos range on average to roll it. So the profit margins were a little bit tighter there, but you do have a little bit of control as to how much you'll pay for the base jewel, which gives you a wider or narrower margin for success. If people happen to watch this video, it may end up crashing this particular market for aura stackers, which are incredibly powerful, but you know, at the end of the day, people should be able to play the builds they want to play. And my promise to you is next league, I will make these kinds of videos in a more timely fashion so you can strike while the iron is hot, as opposed to after the league is done. That said, barring any major changes from grinding gear in 3.14, this strategy should be pretty sound to move forward with. And there you have it, short and sweet way to make tons of money. I myself ended up probably making around 500 exalts through the league by doing this method alone. I'll leave a written step-by-step in the video description for anyone that would find that useful. And as always, if you found this helpful, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, that helps me out a ton. And until next time, this is Eli, signing off.